Popok, Legal AF, we got another potential corruption scandal with Donald Trump's name on it, this time in Georgia. Georgia has a state election board, the way most states do, except this one is a 5-member panel, and 3 of them are Trumpers and election deniers. And one of them in particular, Rick Jaffaris, maybe just try to cut a deal with the future Trump administration to get a job with the Environmental Protection Agency in return for him helping Donald Trump in Georgia in the election process. This is that transactional thing that Donald Trump likes to do, buy and sell people and their values, and he may have a willing participant in Rick Jaffaris. I mean, The Guardian and some other news outlets reached out to him and asked him point blank, did you try to cut a deal with Donald Trump and the Trump administration to get a job in his administration in return for your votes on the board? And why is this so important? Because at least in Georgia, the Georgia State Election Board is in control of rules and regulations around the integrity of an election, about how votes are counted, about how voters vote, about who's registered and not, whose votes end up in the trash can or in the provisional ballot box instead of in the real ballot box, and how votes get certified. Back in early August, we saw some rule changes by this Trump election denying dominated 3-2 election board that favored obviously Donald Trump. In particular, two in particular now are looking very suspicious, given that one of the members is trying to actively seek a job, at least that's been the reporting, with the Trump administration as an Environmental Protection Agency person. They did 2 things back in August that were not head scratchers because we expected it. One of them was they reopened and sent another referral to a district attorney, the attorney general in Georgia, to reopen an investigation into Fulton County government and Fani Willis, the prosecutor who brought the case against Donald Trump and 16 others for election fraud. Sure, why don't we open up an investigation of the county who's just trying to open up an investigation about crime in their county? Why not? So we had that. And then secondly, they empowered and expanded the election board in any county to investigate any vote before allowing certification. Again, creating an unnecessary step to benefit Donald Trump to delay the certification of the election in Georgia. That was the board. Now, that board is dominated by 3 pro-Trumpers, MAGA election deniers. Rick Jaffaris, who I'm going to talk about extensively on this hot take, Janelle King, and a woman named Johnson. Those are the 3. Okay? Rick, what came out is that Rick Jaffaris, is after he had already voted to help Donald Trump, apparently let it be known that he's quote unquote retiring soon and would love a job in the District 4 of the Environmental Protection Agency Southeast region to become a director for them in the Trump administration. Talk about a quid pro quo. I mean, that's like dangling, a red flag in front of a bull. Donald Trump's all about the transactions. He's all about the quid pro quo. And if you're wondering, how do we know that? Because The Guardian contacted and other media outlets contacted Rick Jaffaris, and he basically admitted that he made the pitch. Let's play that clip.
Do you know anything about anybody on the SEB? The rumor is that the Trump campaign is floating an administration position to one of the Republicans on the state election board.
And I don't know how that got started. I don't know anybody in the Trump administration. I helped Brian Jack with his campaign. And I told Brian, I said, I'm fixing to retire. I said, if any of y'all can't figure out who y'all want to be the EPA director in the Southeast, I'd like to have it. That's all I said.
Oh, wait. Okay, so you said you told him, I'd like to be EPA director.
Well, not the main. It's just over. It's called Region 4, it's the Southeast.
Okay.
Oh, there you have it. I mean, he's acting like, I'm going to read you a quote now, because what also happened is Donald Trump in August, when he went to Georgia, one of the few battleground state rallies that he's done so far, he did a shout out to the 3 on the election board, including Rick Jaffaris. Now, Rick Jaffaris complains, boo-hoo. Now he's getting all abused because he was shouted out by Donald Trump. Please make it go away. Make it stop. Here's what he had to say. When the Atlanta Journal-Constitution reached out to him, he said he turned down the EPA job during Trump's first term. He had told friends that he'd consider the job now, but that he never formally asked for it. He just let the Trump administration know that he's up for grabs. He's for sale. This is his quote, I didn't talk to anyone in the Trump administration. It's been a hardship on us ever since Trump mentioned us at the rally. How the rumor got started that I would join the administration is beyond me. It's all just to make us look like criminals. I have emails and voicemail messages that would make you blush. Really? Let's compare them to the death threats, the misogyny attacks, the race attacks, the attacks on assassination, for calling for the assassination and hanging of Phony Willis, the Fulton County DA, and any judge that tries to adjudicate a criminal case involving Donald Trump. Sorry if we don't feel sorry for you. Speaking to 11 Alive, another TV station down in Georgia, Jafari's added, y'all have taken a nothing story and blown it up, done with media. It's ridiculous. And then that was the end of that. Now, the reality is that Johnson, Jafari's, and King, the three Trumpers election deniers, all voted in favor of that law change I told you about to benefit Donald Trump, allowing the board to initiate what's called a reasonable inquiry when alleged voting discrepancies emerged. And made that referral to the Georgia Attorney General, Chris Carr, to reopen the case against Fulton County about how they handled the 2020 vote count. And while we're at it, why don't we just take a look at Phony Willis as well? Because why not? So,
once again, Democrats flipping the script on these MAGA Republicans. This took place earlier today at the Judiciary Committee hearing where the MAGA Republicans wanted to pull this big stunt where they were going to bring in Attorney General Merrick Garland and spew their lies and propaganda. But the Democrats basically took control of the committee hearing and showed how hypocritical and how the MAGA Republican Party does not stand for law and order. They are part of a cult run by a convicted felon and somebody adjudicated to have committed sexual assault. In this next clip right here, Democratic Congressmember Adam Schiff says, sure, it's unprecedented that the leader of the Republican Party was convicted, but it's unprecedented what Donald Trump did and that we all know he did because we observed it and we can follow the evidence. Here, play this clip. And then Democratic Congressmember Cohen says, the ultimate irony here is that Matt Gaetz is saying that the DOJ is weaponized. What happened to his prosecution? Here, play this clip. Then Democratic Congressmember Eric Swalwell said, it's always interesting to me when these MAGA Republicans talk about states' rights until states' rights don't matter to them where their cult leader is convicted in a state where the cult leader committed crimes. Watch Democratic Congressmember Swalwell just state facts, and then the MAGA Republicans tried to say, take down his words, strike it from the record. Here, play this clip. By the way, when the MAGA Republicans did that at the committee hearing, it kind of proved the point that they were in a cult. Next up, Democratic Congressmember Adam Schiff, once again, talking about how these MAGA Republicans, rather than standing for law and order, are just trying to cope with the fact that their dear leader was convicted of multiple felony counts for committing crimes. Here, play this clip. And then, of course, Democratic Congressmember Eric Swalwell had to take another jab at Matt Gaetz. Here, play this clip. So you may be saying, what was this hearing about? It seems that the Democrats were taking the upper hand. Well, the MAGA Republicans were, talking about holding Merrick Garland in contempt unless he showed up. And Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, showed up. And, this is where the MAGA Republicans spew their conspiracies. Weren't you and President Biden, despite the fact that we say he's so sleepy and he can't do anything, didn't you mastermind these state prosecutions, which is, again, entirely false. That's what they wanted to do. They want that theater so that they can go on Hannity and all their right-wing propaganda networks, the ones that are found liable for defamation and pay massive defamation settlements, like Fox paying out nearly $1 billion in a defamation settlement, or the Epoch Times, whose CFO was just criminally indicted, or the Miles Guo network, who was also criminally indicted for $1 billion profit. That's what they want to do. So here's Matt Gaetz just spewing a bunch of baseless nonsense, but he's performing right now now for Fox, but I just want to show you, like, what is it that they're doing. Here, play this clip.
Donald Trump just admitted something big. He made a hidden but not so hidden threat during his rally in Wisconsin that only confirms something we've been talking about on this channel for a while now. I want to break that down. I want to break down some of Donald Trump's disgusting remarks that flew under the radar yesterday, and also Jesse Waters is now trying to spin Kamala Harris's amazing day as something bad. We have a lot to cover and no time to waste. All that I ask is that you leave a like on the video below. So let's start off with Jesse Waters trying to spin Kamala Harris's beautiful clip of her hugging some constituents in Pennsylvania. He's trying to turn that into something bad. Now, if you haven't seen my previous video where I cover Kamala Harris in the store, I highly recommend you go check it out. The way Fox News is spinning it is disgusting. Watch. Everybody's loving it. Everybody is loving this. So what is Jesse Waters even saying or implying here? He is a deeply unserious person with deeply unserious commentary. I don't usually toot my own horn, but I think I'm 21 and I genuinely have deeper commentary than this dude right here who's been on TV for a while. We actually talk about policy. We talk about what VP Harris plans to do. We dig into what Donald Trump says, which is actually what we're right about to do. Meanwhile, this guy has the most surface level. Just everything he says is so unserious. Here's Donald Trump talking about his plan to deport 11 million, 15 million, 20 million illegal immigrants. The number changes every single week. But he finally says the quiet part out loud in this clip. Listen closely. This is something I've been saying for a while now. If you've watched my channel, you've heard me say, how does Donald Trump, how do people deport 20 million immigrants without 1, accidentally deporting American citizens in the process, 2, tanking the economy, 3, sucking up useful police resources on this, and 4, having mass violence break out across the country. This is a little bit of an anecdotal story, but after the DNC, I took an Uber home back to my apartment because I live in Chicago, and my Uber was asking me, oh, you're a Democrat? And I said, yes, I was at the DNC, I'm a Democrat, I'm here for the press, and he said, I'm terrified of a second Trump term. This guy was tearing up because he said he moved here a few years ago. He's not here legally. He's driving Uber to support his young daughter, and he's scared that Donald Trump will kick him out of the country. This was a totally normal, nice guy that was helping me out when I needed an Uber ride at midnight, and Donald Trump wants to kick this person out. That dude contributes more to our economy than Donald Trump ever contributed in his entire life to anything. I also want to play this clip of Donald Trump yesterday in New York City, where Donald Trump appealed the verdict in the E. Jean Carroll case where a jury deliberated that he had sexually assaulted her, and this clip is disgusting. I'm not sure if I talked about it, but I want to... That line is disgusting. Donald Trump was essentially saying, I didn't rape her, but if I had, she wouldn't have been the one. And just look at Alina Habba's face right here. Alina Habba has visual disgust. This cannot be a real human being. I struggle to believe this is a real human being. This article reads, Donald Trump warns getting migrants out will be a bloody story. Former President Donald Trump intensified his rhetoric on immigration today, warning that removing migrants from the United States would be a, quote, bloody...
Donald Trump is frantically posting things like this. Dems dust off the Russia playbook. It's always projection and confession with Donald Trump. He's posting video from Fox Propaganda where they say, oh, here we go again, Russia, 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 right? This follows the Department of Justice unsealing an indictment against Russian nationals who used a right-wing media company as a front in the United States. It was called Tenet Media, to spread pro-Russian propaganda as well as to divide Americans and divide communities, ultimately with the goal of trying to get Donald Trump elected. A very detailed indictment, and one of the things that many people suspect is why the founders of Tenet Media, who are named in this indictment as basically knowing they were dealing with Moscow, why they weren't indicted, that they were possibly charged already, and that they are now cooperating. So this is just the tip of the iceberg, and Donald Trump knows that. Don't let them gaslight you, folks. You know the easiest way that you can show people when Donald Trump goes, oh, it's Russia, Russia, Russia. I mean, look, when Donald Trump was running in 2016 and he gave a press conference where he quite literally said, Russia, if you are listening, I want you to hack the emails of my political opponent. Here, just listen to what he said in his own words. Here, play this clip. Now, you remember over this past weekend, one of the clips that I provided where Donald Trump gave that bizarre interview with Mark Levin, who talks like that. And remember what Donald Trump kind of just bizarrely brought up on his own? He talked about how he really wanted to make deals with Putin, but because people were accusing him of making deals with Putin, he couldn't get those deals done. Remember that? Here, play this clip. And is it worth reminding you as well that the first individuals from a foreign country who Donald Trump invited to the White House were the top foreign leaders from Putin's Russia. He had Sergei Kislyak and Lavrov in the Oval Office, who he met with outside of the presence of any American media or any of his own advisors. And then he gave them classified information. You know how we know he gave them classified information? He tweeted about it. He said he gave them classified information, and he said then that he had an absolute right to do it. I want you to think about that. He was using the language of absolute immunity, the language of a dictator, with his first act of the presidency, bringing the Russians into the Oval, into we the people, our Oval, giving them classified information, tweeting that he gave them classified information and said he had the right to do it. And remember when he went to Helsinki? Shall I show you that? Let me show you where Donald Trump said that he trusts Vladimir Putin.
Fox News just cut away. Fox News cut away right as he said it, literally. I am done pulling any punches with Donald Trump. It is time to call him out as the terrible human being that he is. Now, I am annoyed because he just took the stage in North Carolina and immediately made a joke about Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, nearly being beaten to death by a hammer in his own home. And Trump has made jokes like this many times in the past, but this one was especially annoying. Not only because I recently read Nancy Pelosi's book, where she details how traumatic that was for her entire family. She has 5 children, and I believe she said 9 grandchildren, and it all shattered their lives. Paul Pelosi hasn't been the same since, and he is traumatized, and it was all made worse by Republicans making jokes, spreading conspiracy theories, being nasty, and it's all a top-down movement from Donald Trump. But this also makes me mad, because Republicans tried so hard to gaslight us into thinking that Democrats are responsible for this political violence after Trump was almost assassinated, even though I have the proof, I have the receipts that I will lay out throughout this video that Republicans have notched up the tensions in America ever since Donald Trump entered politics. Really, ever since Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House. He used a lot of bombastic rhetoric, but let's not waste any time. Let's break down Donald Trump's North Carolina rally. Before we even dig into the Nancy Pelosi, Paul Pelosi stuff, we have a lot to talk about there. I want to play this clip of Donald Trump talking about election fraud because this issue is important to me. All that I ask is that you leave a like on the video below and subscribe to the Adam Mockler channel.
Look, we have to win,
The most dangerous part is that he tries to crack jokes throughout his authoritarian rambles. But I just want to say, Donald Trump is a projection machine. And I'm not just saying that as a talking point. Every time he talks about VP Harris using notes during her interviews, that's because he said that he uses notes as well. That's something he would do. Every time he says that I'm not a puppet, they're a puppet, that is him projecting. And when Donald Trump says that Democrats are the ones that are cheating, it's because Donald Trump tried to prove that the election was stolen. He went through 60 different courts. They all said no, and that was fine. But then Donald Trump tried to steal the election through extra legal means by pressuring election officials into finding votes, pressuring Mike Pence into choosing a fake slate of electors. So Donald Trump is projecting in this clip. And again, there is zero evidence of election fraud. How the hell does somebody who has spread so much fear, so much distrust, and so much disinformation still have so much power in America? It is a complete failure of the Republican Party, and honestly, a lot of it is probably Russian propaganda. Definitely Russian propaganda. Let's move on to Nancy Pelosi. Donald Trump said, quote, Nancy Pelosi has a big wall around her house. Of course, it didn't help too much with the problem she had, did it? And this is the exact moment that Fox News began to cut away and use the talking head presentation style because they wanted to block what Donald Trump was saying. They don't want a repeat of the Dominion lawsuit. At this very moment, Fox News was like, we cannot show this anymore. Also, this is counterproductive to Donald Trump's argument. He's saying that Nancy Pelosi's wall did. Trump is in absolute denial about his debate performance last night. He has spent all morning doing media interviews claiming that he won the debate. It was actually an easy debate and he beat Kamala so badly he won't have to debate her again, and that he's winning in every single poll. He has truly reached a new level of delusion. And at the same time, it's almost impressive how J.D. Vance is able to make the situation much worse every single time he does a media hit. See, Vance, along with the rest of the MAGA universe, are all in damage control mode today, watching the House burn down from the inside, doing interviews and running defense for Donald Trump after he essentially had a public meltdown on the debate stage last night, claiming that Kamala Harris was a Marxist, that immigrants are eating pets, saying that we are transgendering illegal immigrants in prisons, and on top of that, he doubled down on his wild, wacky tariff proposal that made everybody realize this man does not even know what tariffs are. So we have a lot to break down, and I want to jump right into it. All that I ask is that you leave a like on the video below, and make sure you subscribe to the Adam Mockler Makler channel. So in this first clip, I just want to show you this watch party for the debate that happened yesterday. Just watch this reaction to the dog moment.
Talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs.
Can I just say, that is actually Donald Trump's worst nightmare? Let me play it one more time. We know that narcissists, sociopaths, they hate being laughed at more than anything else. Take one more look at it.
They're eating the dogs.
This clip made me love my fellow American citizens. I mean, obviously I already do, but everybody in this clip is absolutely awesome. Let's jump into the meat of the video. Let's start off with this clip where JD Vance says something about Taylor Swift with no shred of self-awareness. Just listen closely to what he says.
Of Harris and Waltz right after. She has 283 million followers on Instagram, and I'm sure that someone brought to your attention that she signed it, childless cat lady. This is a phrase that you are going to hear in your dreams and your nightmares probably for many years to come. How do you speak to women voters who obviously they care about what she thinks?
Of course. Well, look, we admire Taylor Swift's music, but I don't think most Americans, whether they like her music or fans of hers or not, are going to be influenced by a billionaire celebrity who I think is fundamentally disconnected from the interests and the problems of most Americans. Look, when grocery prices go up by 20%, it hurts most Americans. It doesn't hurt Taylor Swift. When housing prices become unaffordable, it doesn't affect Taylor Swift or any other billionaire. It does affect middle-class Americans.
There's absolutely no shot he said that with zero self-awareness. If you guys didn't hear it, he said that Americans won't connect with a billionaire who is out of touch. Let me play it one more time. If you would have tuned in at that exact moment, I would have thought they were talking about Donald Trump.
Most Americans, whether they like her music or fans of hers or not, are going to be influenced by a billionaire celebrity who I think is fundamentally disconnected from the interest.
This is Donald Trump behind bulletproof glass in Wisconsin, only days after his running mate said that school shootings were just a, quote, fact of life. And Donald Trump said a lot of insane stuff throughout the speech, but he may have honestly broken a record for most glitches in one speech, because every single time he opened his mouth, he either skipped syllables or slurred his way through sentences entirely. I also want to highlight Donald Trump's fear-mongering tactics that are on full display throughout the speech. I'm not even kidding. There is a point where he says that immigrants are coming for you, transgender people are coming for you, Marxist Democrats are coming for you. He's so desperate to claw his way back up, and we have a lot to break down with little time to waste. So all that I ask is that you leave a like on the video below and subscribe to the Adam Makler channel. In this first video, Donald Trump genuinely says the words, "Poor Russia."
Ago, it started again. The Justice Department said Russia may be involved in our elections again. You see that, Mr. Congressman? Great congressman from Texas. You see that? Russia. It's Russia. And you know, the whole world laughed at him this time. 2.5 years, not a phone call made to Russia, not anything to do with Russia, except stopping their pipeline and lots of other things that these people approved. And they said just the other day, the Attorney General, we are looking at Russia. And I said, oh no, it's Russia, Russia, Russia all over again. But they don't look at China and they don't look at Iran. They look at Russia.
Okay, a few things annoy me with this. Number one, Donald Trump is willing to latch on to any conspiracy theory possible, whether it's about elections or court cases or AI crowds or Kamala Harris using notes. Donald Trump is the king of latching on to conspiracy theories and boosting them to MAGA, but all of a sudden, when the conspiracy theory is that Russia is meddling in our elections, which they have every incentive to do as one of our biggest competitors on the global stage, probably the biggest competitor other than China, then all of a sudden, that is a crazy conspiracy theory that the radical Democrats made up. It is so convenient for him that he can make any conspiracy theory up that he wants, but then when Russia actually genuinely interferes with elections, all MAGA supporters are like, no, that's a stretch. I don't think that would actually happen. Also, just notice how Trump talks about fellow Americans like they're his mortal enemies. Vladimir Putin doesn't even need to divide the US when he has Donald Trump doing it for him. And finally, I want to replay the first second of this clip. Listen to how much he glitches. Like, I can't even understand what he's saying.
Ago, it started again. The Justice Department.
So in this next clip, I want to show you a series of clips where Donald Trump's fear-mongering tactics are on full display. I'm not going to lie, he usually tries to hide them or weave them together a little bit more covertly, but in this speech, he just let it rip. Every single fear-mongering tactic back to back to back, and Aaron Rupar helped us break it down. He said, a huge part of Trump's speeches is fear-mongering about fantasies completely disconnected from reality, and here's a clip of Donald Trump saying that if you send your son Jimmy off to school, he's going to come back with a brutal operation. I'll debunk it after.
Can you imagine you're a parent and your son leaves the house and you say, Jimmy, I love you so much. Go have a good day in school. and your son comes back with a brutal operation. Can you even imagine this? What the hell is wrong with our country?
You need to watch the expressions on the faces of Trump's lawyers as he describes another woman who has credibly accused him of sexual assault. Now, just to recap, Donald Trump held an emergency press conference in New York City after he appealed the verdict in the E. Jean Carroll case, where a jury deliberated that he had sexually assaulted her. And during this press conference, if you want to call it that, Donald Trump rambled about Russia, made up conspiracy theories about E. Jean Carroll, and in this clip, he perfectly incriminates himself. He says that there were two witnesses. He describes the witnesses. He talks about another person who has accused him, and I've never seen a miscalculation like this in my life before. Just pay attention to his lawyers' faces.
Now, there were two witnesses. One is a woman who's followed me for years. She said in 1979 I was in an airplane with her, commercial flight, and we became very intimate. I just sat down. I think I had the book, The Art of the Deal. I was famous then, too. I've been famous for a long time. And we're sitting in first class, according to her. Never happened, by the way. Totally made up story. She's a Clinton person, too, by the way. Big Clinton person. She made up the story. And so many years ago, and I think it would be 1979. One of my many people behind me could correct it, but I think she said 1979. It's a long time ago. And I sat down. I believe I had some pretty big success then, and I was being talked about a lot. Maybe The Art of the Deal was out, sometime after that. I'm not sure. But I was well known. And passengers are coming into the plane. And she said I was making out with her. And then, after 15 minutes, and then she changed her story a couple of times. Maybe it was quicker. That I grabbed her at a certain point, and that was when she had enough. Now, so think of the impracticality of this. I'm famous. I'm in a plane. People are coming into the plane. And I'm looking at a woman, and I grab her, and I start kissing her and making out with her. What are the chances of that happening? What are the chances? And frankly, I know you're going to say it's a terrible thing to say, but it couldn't have happened. It didn't happen. And she would not have been the chosen one. She would not have been the chosen one. She has gone around for years saying the story. Everywhere I go, she says this story. And it's a total lie. Now, I assume she'll sue me now for defamation like I got sued by E. Jean Carroll.
Wow, but it gets worse. Nick Field on Twitter said, Trump giving a disastrous press conference ensures that his record of sexual assault will be the #1 news story the weekend before the debate, and I'm sure he'll get asked about this during the debate. In this next clip, Donald Trump brings up an additional woman who has credibly accused him of sexual assault and details the allegations for almost 5 minutes. I, of course, won't play the entire clip, but Trump says this woman, whatever her name is, and just talks about another woman who has accused him, unprompted.
Two witnesses. One is named Jessica Leeds, so she was up again. She can't get rid of her. She was up. She said I was in an airplane doing that. A couple of things. You have an armrest in planes back in those days. Oh, by the way, she didn't know anything about the flight, where we were going.
As Donald Trump approaches a debate, he follows the same playbook to try to work the refs by attacking the network that the debate is going to be on and attacking the moderator or moderators. Donald Trump then relies on Fox to amplify that and his agents at Fox, like Sean Hannity, to perpetuate the attack so that the right-wing base is riled up. So when he goes into the debate, his base is already brainwashed into thinking it's rigged, it's unfair, the moderators hate him, no matter how bad Donald Trump does, that they should feel bad for him because it was rigged from the outset and that he actually does great when he does bad. Remember right before the CNN debate what we saw happening? It's basically the exact same thing we're seeing Fox and Donald Trump do now with ABC, because the playbook is identical. And I just want to share the playbook with you because when you see it and you spot it, you know the manipulation that's taking place, and you could potentially share this with people in your family or friends or colleagues or neighbors to say, just look at what they're doing. Okay, so let's just look at this together. So before the debate on CNN with President Biden, You had Sean Hannity saying that Jake Tapper should be disqualified for moderating the debate. Play this clip. You had Sean Hannity saying that Jake Tapper is a radical left-wing person masquerading as a journalist. Play the clip. Sean Hannity had a panel where he said Trump should just back out. It's going to be unfair. Play the clip. Sean Hannity had Lara Trump on, and he said the CNN debate was going to be rigged. And by the way, the debate on CNN, I don't know what you thought. I thought that Jake Tapper and Dana Bash were like the worst moderators imaginable. They let Donald Trump lie about everything. There was really no control over the debate at all. The questions, the way they were even framed was bizarre. I thought President Biden did horrible at the debate. I also thought Donald Trump did horrible at the debate too. Frankly, he lied the entire time. Biden just kind of struggled through it. But I wanted to show you there was a relentless attack on Bash and Tapper before the debate. And did that influence the way they behaved as moderators? Here, by the way, is Caroline Levitt, Donald Trump's spokesperson. She did a media tour as well, attacking CNN and Tapper and Bash before. She said it's going to be a 3-on-1 and it's all going to be very unfair. Play this clip. And here's Donald Trump prior to the CNN debate, giving speeches where he would whine about the debate. Here's an example. All right, now let's talk about what Donald Trump and Fox are doing before the ABC debate, scheduled for this upcoming week with George Stephanopoulos. Well, Donald Trump continues to say how unfair it is. He says he's going to have to be questioned by Slopadopoulos, who he says is like the worst ever. But then let me show you what Fox is doing. So you have Sean Hannity basically threatening Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, with a right-wing boycott if they're too mean to Donald Trump. Play this clip. This is the second time now Hannity appears to float a boycott against Disney if the debate doesn't turn out the way he and Donald Trump wanted to. Here's another segment by Hannity. And here as well, you have Hannity doing that again. Let me just share it with you one more time. Play it. I can show you many more clips like that on Fox, but you get the point. Then Donald Trump gives a speech where he says, even if I do great, they're going to say it was humiliating to me, that I was humiliated. Even if I do the best, he's preparing his audience for when, or in his base for when he does terrible, for them to think terrible is good. Here, play this clip. Here's another clip of Donald Trump recently attacking George Stephanopoulos and giving him like a stupid nickname. Play this clip. And then there's multiple posts on Donald Trump's social media where he attacks Stephanopoulos and ABC over and over and over again. But this is relentless. It's relentless. And I share it with you because these are brainwashing tactics that are used. And oftentimes, I struggle with the fact that I'm like, how are people supporting Trump and all of this? But where I feel very sympathetic sometimes, though, and perhaps I shouldn't, maybe I should, is I know there are billions of dollars, tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars by people who want an oligarchy here in the United States, who are pushing all of that money to brainwash people with tactics like the ones that I'm showing you. And I'm just giving you a sliver. We're just talking about the debate, but you can go into all of these issues, whether it's immigration, whether it's inflation, whether it's jobs, whether it's, you name the issue.
Michael Popak, Legal AF. I go away for a day and all this happens. Let me catch you up on what's going on with Donald Trump, his sentencing in New York, and his attempt to remove the case to federal court and get the Second Circuit Court of Appeals involved. I'm going to mesh the two things together. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals just made a decision about which panel of the 3-judge panel is going to make a decision ultimately about whether Donald Trump's case stays or goes from state or federal court. Going to talk about that in a minute. There is still a motion for administrative or other stay of Judge Hellerstein's decision to not allow the case to be removed, to keep the case in state court. At the same time, the other wheel of justice that's spinning is you've got the state court judge responsible for the sentencing of Donald Trump and to enter the judgment against Donald Trump since he was convicted of his 34-count felony convictions by a 12-0 vote of a jury in state court in New York. You got the state court judge saying, you know what, for right now, with everything that's going on and the election so near and the immunity decision that I still have to render, I'm going to take the pressure off everybody. I'm not going to sentence until after the election. Now, I'll do a separate hot take on that. We'll pick it up with Legal AF on Saturday. I had thought that he would at least sentence, let the American people know what the results are before they go to the polls, and then stay the sentence, stop the sentence from going forward, not have Donald Trump report for incarceration, in other words, and then allow him to take the appeal. But nope. Judge Merchan I don't know if it's because he's been so abused by Donald Trump for the last year and a half, but has decided that the discretion is the better part of valor and that he's going to stay it. That doesn't mean the issues related to stay and removal, which sound similar but are different in federal court, are over. They're not. So let me dive into the federal side. I'll touch on the state side, and I promise I will wrap it all together before this hot take is over. Okay. Let's start with where we are in federal, why we're in federal court and where we are in federal court. Donald Trump has been trying to hijack the case, take it away from the state court judge, for the last 2 years. And in his last ditch effort to avoid sentencing and to try to get, like a lateral pass and take it out of state court over to federal court, so that he has a direct shot to the United States Supreme Court on the federal side. For those that are following at home, we've got two systems of justice in this country, and sometimes they overlap. One's our state court system, one's our federal court system. Both have criminal cases, both have civil cases. It just depends on if you have an ability, a ticket to get into which courtroom, which courthouse. Donald Trump has been prosecuted for state crime by a state prosecutor in state court. That's what happens 99% of the time. In rare occasions, you may have the grounds to take your case before you've been convicted over to federal court. Donald Trump tried that. It failed. His appeal was dismissed by him over a year ago. His major argument is, I was a federal officer. I was employee badge number 1 for the federal government as the president of the United States at the time. And everything I did related to Stormy Daniels and the hush money, bribery, election interference, cover up through, Michael Cohen, trying not to talk in shorthand here, it was all part of my job description. It was all part of my color of my federal office. And therefore I am entitled to federal officer removal, which is a provision of the statutes that allow for, in unique, narrow circumstances, former or current federal officers to take their case over to federal court. Usually that's done before you're arraigned, before you're convicted, and certainly before you're sentenced, but not in Donald Trump's case. So he tried it at the last minute. Judge Hellerstein, the senior judge assigned to the matter for the Southern District of New York, sitting in Manhattan, was having none of it. We've already reported on the Midas Touch Network. I've done hot takes. We've done midweek editions of Legal AF on this. The Judge Hellerstein took literally one look at the papers and said,